The book that I'd like to share with you today is called Hachi.
This is a story which took place about 100 years ago. This is a town named Odate. It is the place where Akita dogs come from. The snowy winter was about to arrive in the leafy hills and rice fields. In November, as light snow fell, 4 puppies were born. Loved dearly by their mother, they quickly grew up. Then one day, a man from Tokyo called to say he would like to take in one of the puppies. A friendly pup with big wide eyes was chosen to go. His name was Hachi. On a snowy morning in January 9th, Hachi set off for Tokyo from Odate Station. As he traveled on the train all alone, he thought of his mother and brothers back home. He arrived at Shibuya Station the next morning. Hachi's new owners, Professor Ueno and his wife, loved dogs. "Thank you so much for coming," Professor Ueno said as he gave Hachi a gentle hug. However, there was a big dog called John waiting in the Ueno's garden. Hachi was scared of John and cowered in a corner of the house. At night, poor Hachi missed his mother in Odate so much that he couldn't sleep. He was so tired and lonely that he became ill. The Uenos looked after Hachi well, wrapping him in a warm blanket and giving him medicine. Then one day, John came up to Hachi and gave him a friendly lick. That night, Hachi fell sound asleep snuggled up next to John. By the time spring came, Hachi was well again. Professor Ueno called out to the 2 friends, "John, Hachi, come on, we're going for a walk." It was Hachi's first outing. He went for a walk under beautiful pink and white cherry trees that were in full bloom. Hachi leapt up and down and ran around the park in excitement. When Professor Ueno went off to work at the university, John and Hachi accompanied him to Shibuya Station. Professor Ueno came home from work in the early evening. Hachi stopped playing with John and raced to the door to greet the professor. Then one evening, Hachi went to meet Professor Ueno at the station all by himself. Crowds burst out of the station entrance. Hachi dashed towards the professor as soon as he spotted him among the throng of people. "Have you been waiting for me?" asked the professor as he hugged Hachi. From then on, every day, Hachi went to the station to see the professor off to work in the morning and to meet him on his return in the evening. Summer. Water sprinkled over a path lined with morning glories. The evenings were still hot and humid, but Hachi enjoyed his walks with Professor Ueno. Autumn. A golden carpet of fallen leaves lay below the ginkgo trees. The fishmonger and the yakitori shop in the shopping arcade were packed with customers. Winter. Unusually for Tokyo, snow settled on the ground. Hachi remembered his hometown of Odate as he played in the snow. Before long, it was Hachi's second spring among the cherry blossoms. He had grown quite big. During the past year, every day had been full of joy for Hachi. But in May, something very sad suddenly happened. Professor Ueno waved goodbye to Hachi at the station as usual. Later that day, the professor collapsed at work and passed away. Hachi had no idea what had happened. After that, Hachi had to say a tearful farewell to Mrs. Ueno and John. He went to live with a local gardener. Although the gardener's family were very kind and looked after him well, Hachi still yearned to see Professor Ueno, so he went to Shibuya Station every day to wait for his return. While he was waiting outside the station, the neighborhood children drew all over Hachi's face, but gentle Hachi just sat there in silence and let them do it. A year passed, and then another. Several years later, one day, the owner of the yakitori shop was looking curiously at Hachi when he noticed the name on Hachi's collar. Taken by surprise, he said, "Oh, you're Professor Ueno's dog. I can't believe you're still waiting for him to come home." The restaurant owner kindly stroked Hachi, giving him a piece of chicken on a skewer. The story of Hachi's patient wait outside the station soon spread throughout the town. The townfolk began to call out to Hachi. The school children gathered around Hachi and gently stroked him. "We're very sorry for making fun of you," they all said. One dark night, Hachi was attacked by a group of stray dogs. His left ear was damaged, and from that day on, he would no longer stand up straight. Through wind, rain, heat, and cold, Hachi continued to wait quietly outside the station for the professor. After 9 years, Hachi had become old and frail. He could no longer sit down properly. So, instead, he just lay on his side, gazing longingly at the station entrance. The station master couldn't bear to watch anymore, so he kindly called out to Hachi. Hachi, you can use the station's empty storeroom whenever you like. From then on, the storeroom became Hachi's favorite place. Then one day, poor old Hachi's last day arrived. It was in the dark, early hours of March 8th. In the back street from where he could watch the station entrance far away, Hachi stopped moving. As Hachi began to quietly close his eyes, he heard the soft voice of Professor Ueno calling out to him. Come on, Hachi, I'm waiting for you. At that moment, Hachi rose up to heaven, where he jumped into the professor's arms. The professor and Hachi set off together towards the rising sun.